spiritual winners lose every day. Hey, my name is Brian. Welcome to my garage Bible study. It's my garage, my chainsaw. I talked last week about fruit and trees. I ended up using this. Kind of got me in the mood of killing something, tree-wise, chopping it down. So if you want to hear what I said about trees and knowing the condition of your heart, check out last week. But this week, I want to talk about losing, being a spiritual winner. I want to be a spiritual winner. Who wants to be a loser? I want to be a winner. I want to be a spiritual winner. It's interesting, the way you win spiritually is totally different from the way you win in the world in which we live. Let's hear what Jesus says. He says this in Luke chapter 9, verse 23. He says, if anyone would come after me, which by the way, after him, he's a spiritual winner. He's the most important and impressive human being that's ever walked planet Earth. We date time after him. He's the greatest speaker of all time. Everyone recognized that. He was a miracle worker. Everyone is pro-Jesus. He is a winner. And if you come after him, he says, you got to be like him. Come after him. Let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Now, we know right now what the cross is because we've all been to an Easter service or some such thing. We've seen people wear jewelry that have crosses. We've seen movies or TV shows. And so we forget that when Jesus talked about this, they had no idea of any death on a cross. He's not talking, I'm going to die on a cross. There's some veiled language about him dying a couple times, but these people have no idea that he's ever going to actually die on a cross. A cross was the most painful and excruciating form of death that humans have ever invented. That's why since it's so excruciating, we know it as crucifixion. We get excruciating from the term crucifixion. When Jesus was saying this, what they were thinking of wasn't some religious scene. They were thinking about the horrible pain it is to be hanging on a cross with your bones dislocated, not being able to inhale or exhale, scraping up and down on a cross while you have nails going through your wrists and through your feet. It was hyper. And he tells them, pick up your cross, pick up your means of painful execution and follow me. This would be like today if he said, pick up your lethal injection. Just walk around with a syringe with a lethal dose of anthrax in it. Just walk around with that because, hey, you're going to have to maybe use that sometime. We go, what? Walk around with my anthrax? Walk around with my lethal, what? What are you saying? This is what they were thinking. What are you talking about here? And he describes it a little more. He said, whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. He says you got to be willing to lose life. He's not saying you should be willing to die physically today, though maybe you need to die physically today. Just reading an article all over in Ukraine, how there's an appropriate level of critique that's going to certain men in Ukraine who are fleeing the country and they don't want to fight. It's like we're okay in our mind, women and children flee for all the appropriate reasons. And there's the vast majority of men in Ukraine have picked up a gun and have laid down their life and are trying to take a life to save their country and save their family. But something inside of us says, when you run away from a fight, that's not an honorable person. Jesus is tying into this here. He's saying that there are times that you're going to have to lose your life and lay down your life physically. But really what he's talking about is if you're okay with that extreme example of laying down your life physically, you ought to be able to lay down your ego. You ought to be able to lay down your opinions. You ought to be able to lay down your preferences, not just because you don't want to have those anymore, but because you're choosing Jesus' opinions. You're choosing Jesus' life. You're choosing Jesus' preferences. I don't like Christian jewelry. Don't like it at all. I don't like Christian t-shirts. I don't like Christian jewelry. Bothers me, actually. I don't even like crosses inside of churches. I'm not anti-cross at all. I just think for a lot of people, we don't know really what the cross is. And so simply an image of it without teaching around it actually can inoculate us to the power of the cross, that Jesus actually laid down his life on a cross so we don't have to lay down our life eternally inside of hell. I'm watching right now, I'm coming to the end of it, a series known as called Vikings. It's been around for a long, long, long time. It's pretty good. It doesn't make my top 5. It doesn't get my emotions going. I'm going, oh, that's so good. It's so heartrending. It's well done. And there's some historical stuff in it. One of the interesting tensions in there is the Norse religion versus Christianity. And you've got people who are Vikings who are every bit as judgmental and intolerant of other people's religions, given their religion that has Odin and Thor and the Valkyries and Valhalla. They're just as dogmatic and vigilant about that as the most dogmatic right-wing Christian or the most dogmatic Catholic, evangelical, whatever. They do a really good job of showing both of these camps can be really out of touch and not open-hearted towards the other. The thing I don't like about it is, like, you got people who will convert to Christianity because it's a political move for them, Vikings who will convert to Christianity because it'll give them more access to England and they'll get judged less in England and they'll maybe be able to have land and that such thing. And they have a cross that signifies their life and their new religion. But that's all they have is a cross. These people wearing crosses, they're not laying their life down for other people. They're not voluntarily giving somebody else the right of way. They're not taking insults from other people. They're not turning the other cheek when they're insulted. No, they're not doing any of that, but they're wearing a piece of Christian jewelry. Man, the number of crosses that are worn relative to the dearth of lives that are picking up their cross is awful. My gosh. If it was 5% of the number of people who wear crosses would actually lay down their life and go about the way of Jesus instead of go about the way of their life, this world would be utterly different, totally different. If 5% of all the churches had a cross in them, and I'll just put crossroads in it, we don't have a cross, but just 5% of all the churches there were, including ours, who doesn't even have a cross, actually would lay down their budgets all the time and sacrifice their growth goals for the growth goals of the kingdom and not be concerned if some other church is growing more than us, or not be concerned if some other pastor is selling more books than me, giving other people my platform to use. If more of us would do it by laying down our life, who knows what the world would look like? Who knows what the kingdom looks like? But the truth of the matter is we'd rather have good doctrine and nice teachings and nice little growth lines instead of actually pick up our cross and die. There comes a time for everyone to die. Not just to die physically, there comes a time for a church to die because it's not fulfilling its mission of blessing the community any longer. There comes a time for a nonprofit to die. And we keep trying to have these things hang on and raise a little more money to keep the doors open, when why are the doors open? Are the doors open because we're giving life, because we're laying down our life so other people can live? Whereas Jesus says a kernel of wheat has to die, fall to the ground, or falls off the tree, it's basically a form of death, hit the ground so that new wheat can pop up. Everywhere in creation we see this. Things must die so other things can live. I go hunting, something will die so that I can live and eat of its flesh. Of course, I don't need to hunt. I can still go to Kroger, but I like the hunting thing. I get in touch with the circle of life. And this is the way it is with our life. Things must die in our life so we can spiritually live. Certain vices may need to go away so that we live. Certain relationships may need to die. I was at a prayer service the other day and they were asking me to be one of the people up front. I was at another church. Would you be up front and allow people to come down and pray for you? Could pray for them. I said, yeah, I'll do that. Absolutely. And it's so hard in the prayer service context to not get into counseling. People tell you their thing and you're supposed to just pray for them. Not say, what do you mean by that? What's your story on that? It's a prayer service, it's not a counseling service. So you can't have 15-minute counseling. But I'll tell you what, man, I wanted to. One woman came up and she was in tears and she said, I need prayer for a, how did she put it? A dysfunctional relationship that I'm in. An unhealthy relationship that I'm in. And I wanted to say, I will pray for you, but that relationship needs to die. If it's unhealthy, it needs to die. I don't know if you're expecting me to pray that he all of a sudden changes and everything starts going well, or pray that he asks you to marry him, because maybe that's why you think the relationship isn't going anywhere. If it's unhealthy, it needs to die. What's unhealthy in your life that needs to die? Your speech habits, your eating habits, your politics. Are your politics giving you any life? Are they giving anybody life? Are they pushing forward the agenda of God? What needs to die inside of you? Your habits of how you spend your time at night, is that adding to life popping up out of you the next morning? I can go on and on and on, and I don't want to state the witness. You and I both have to discern, what is it that's got to die? Not just because that's the circle of life, because that's the way Jesus operates. He tells us to pick up my cross and follow him daily. I'm pretty quick to apologize when I do something wrong, because I died a long time ago. Why do I need to fight to be right? I don't need to fight to protect my opinions and what I said when it might have been stupid and out of line. Why? I don't need to defend what I said if it was stupid and out of line. I already died to that. I already died to people approving of me. So it becomes much easier to ask for apologies instead of saying, well, you didn't really understand what I meant. Well, you heard me out of context. Well, let's just say, I'm sorry. I've died to you thinking I'm smart and thinking that I'm well-read. Maybe I'm not. And I can just apologize because I've already died to the need to be right, because I need to be right with Jesus. Man, if we start doing that, your life's going to take off, and the kingdom of God's going to take off as well. That's all I got for you today. We'll see you next time on my Barrage Bible Study.